The first noteworthy criminal trial in Galina's history, and the only one to result in a conviction of a death penalty in all of Joe Davis County, occurred in late October of 1854. As the story goes, John Taylor lived with his wife in the upper floor of a rundown home in Galina's Old Town. In the lower portion of the home was a gentleman named Rosenberg. One night after a bout of drinking, Mr. Taylor stumbled back to his house and begun to argue with his wife. He had discovered that Miss Taylor was having an affair with the gentleman downstairs. That things got heated, and the argument, by some reports, turned to abuse. It was at this point that Rosenberg, hearing the commotion, came in to his lover's aid. At the sight of the man that started it, Taylor grabbed his gun and took a swing at Rosenberg. His wife stepped between them, trying to quell the dispute, and was struck in the side of the head. The blow from the steel of her husband's shotgun crushed her skull instantly. In short order, a jury of John Taylor's peers found him guilty of murder, and Judge Ben R. Sheldon ordered the punishment of death by hanging. To his dying moment, however, Mr. Taylor swore his innocence. On January 19th, 1855, as Mr. Taylor stood on the gallows, noose around his neck, he addressed the thousands who had come to bear witness. For over 30 minutes, he spoke of the innocence of Jesus and the Lord's forgiveness for whatever sins he may bear, sins that did not include murder. It is also noted that sometime later, as an aged Rosenberg lay on his deathbed, he confessed to the murder of Miss Taylor. Rosenberg was the only other soul present on the day of Miss Taylor's demise, and it was his own words on the stand at Mr. Taylor's trial that led to the quick and decisive verdict. Now, depending on which version of this moment in history we examine, the reason behind Sheriff W.R. Rowley's choice of location to carry out the punishment are varied. By some accounts, it was simply a matter of finding an adequate amount of room for the vast number of spectators who had shown interest in seeing the man put to death. Other claims say that it was due to the pleas of the citizens of Galina that a man be executed somewhere outside of town. As this claim goes, the citizens feared John Taylor's soul would return after death and haunt the grounds where he was hanged. Whichever reason the location chosen was the grounds of the Joe Davis County Poorhouse and Insane Asylum outside the city limits. This area on North Irish Hollow Road is still a stop on many ghost tours. The farm itself was torn down in 2005, but many have seen orbs floating throughout the many acres where the poor farm once stood. Whether it's the ghost of John Taylor or not is debatable. For those not familiar with these poorhouses in the history of America, they were places to provide shelter both to the less fortunate citizens of the area and to those suffering from mental illness. As families moved westward, those who couldn't make the journey were often just left behind. With no family around to provide support, the job fell to the city. Most of the mentally ill were just confined in cells and often received little to no care. These poorhouses were known for overcrowding and less than favorable conditions. Many lived out their final days on the same ground where John Taylor was hung. It is not surprising that legends exist about a good number of these sites throughout the country. For several years, an Italian restaurant used some of the buildings from the poorhouse. The restaurant was reputedly haunted by more than a few spirits. And some say that these spirits even followed them to their new location in downtown Galina.